Hi, everybody. Welcome to the WVHuddle.com Prep Football Podcast. I'm Tom Bragg, joined as always by Assistant Sports Editor at the Gazette-Mail, Derek Taylor to my right, and Prep Sports Reporter Ryan Pritt to my left. No Rick Ryan with us today. He is out on assignment, but lots for us to get into, though, fellas. And looking back at last week, I think the result around the state that everybody was looking at, the game you were at, Derek, that big blowout by Cabell Midland against George Washington.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of just, we talk a lot off camera and just kind of goofing around the office. And we thought this game was going to be probably a Cabell Midland win, but we thought they were going to have to really, really work for it. Well, they worked really hard. GW just didn't put up much of a fight against them, though, huh?
I said right before we went on, that was one of the most impressive performances in, a game against a quality opponent that I've ever covered. 10 touchdowns on 11 possessions. That 11th possession was a kneel down. They just dominated that game from start to finish. I mean, I went ahead and wrote a column yesterday comparing them to the 1999 Parkersburg Big Reds, who went 14-0 and won the state title. A similar kind of team. They were just steamrolling people, and yeah, there's a lot. If you want to ask anything specific about that game, I'll probably go on for a while about it. But from the rushing game to the blocking to their defense, the only thing that really I thought that they fell a little short on, I mean, they did have more than 100 yards in penalties, and they did miss 3 extra points. So they've got something to work on. But really impressive performance.
Well, you get in a tight game, penalties and missed extra points and things like that, they really start to matter now when you're beating a team by 50. It's like, oh, well, we'll do better next time. But maybe something to keep an eye on going forward with Cabell Midland.
A little bit, yeah.
Ryan, you were at the Herbert Hoover Roane County game last week, and there was a couple interesting angles there. Okay, can Herbert Hoover keep this roll going? And you really wanted to see that quarterback from Roane come down. We've seen big numbers from him. What did you see out in Falling Rock on Friday?
Before I get into that game, just to give you a little bit of idea how big that Midland game was, there were people in a AA press box talking about it all night. It had absolutely no implication of my
60
game
miles
at all.
away.
Yeah. But to the Hoover game, that was, we talked a little bit about Tyler May in the early season, and I haven't seen a player all year who has more of his team's offense riding on his shoulders. I can't. With something like 85% of their offensive plays revolved around either him throwing or running, and he ended up with 150, but it was on 30-some carries, and Hoover really did a good job on defense, kind of slowing him down. And then in the second quarter, of course, our player of the week, Tristan Hager, 3 touchdown runs, ended up with 271 yards in that option. That option's lethal, guys. 2 straight weeks. I mean, 2 weeks ago it was fullback Brody Thomas with 250. This week it's quarterback Tristan Hager with 270. So obviously there's some options in the option.
I was going to ask about that because it seems like coming into the season you think, okay, well, Hoover's going to be a little bit better, but where's the production going to come from? They lost some key components to that offense last year, and as you mentioned, Brody Thomas has the big game 2 weeks ago from the fullback spot. Well, Roane County kind of keyed on him, right, and sort of shut that down. Hager doesn't really come out of nowhere, but he just has the best game of the season that he's had, obviously, so far. So there's some stars starting to emerge for this Hoover offense.
And, the interesting thing is I asked Tim Meyer after both games, the first one about Thomas, the second one about Hager, and the first name out of his mouth is Chase Stover, who is like, the wingback coming around in motion.
Gotcha.
And the second play of the game, in the Roane County game, he takes 140 yards for a touchdown. Hager has 10 completions in the last 2 games. Stover's caught 9 of them. He really is that X factor that maybe has been missing from Hoover's offense. I mean, you go back and look at running backs they've had. Dotson comes to mind. They've had good players.
Yeah.
But him on the outside really, and after he takes that first one, Roane's kind of got to be aware of him, and that gets one more guy out of the box, and then Hager's open to run up the middle and just go nuts. So.
Well, I've got them against Mingo Central on Friday night. This was a big game for both. What's the feel you get with that?
Man, I'm kind of like Tom. I'm not sure Mingo is not the clear-cut number 2 in AA right now.
Nothing against Tulsa, but I think if they played again, I would probably pick Mingo. Now, I could be wrong, like I was when they played last time. But
and Bluefield's probably pretty good too. But it'll be really. I think Hoover's riding high and playing their best football of the year right now. I think if they played Chapmanville again, I might take Hoover in that game too.
Yeah.
But man, Mingo looks like a handful from the outside looking in.
Real quick, in Class A, the big mover in the poll this week, and we'll get into this, but South Harrison, I wanted to get your thoughts on them because they jumped up. They were number 9 in the poll last week. Big win for them. They jump up. Are they a legitimate threat in Class A, you think? As well, you know,
I
they're
think
kind
so.
of in that second
I think
pack
they're a
with the-
Final Four kind
Okay,
of team.
okay.
That's how we kind of, well, at least I, boil it down. Are they a top 8 team? Or are they a top 4 team? Whatever. And I think that by all accounts, they very well could be a top 4 team. They're very young from all accounts, okay? But their ability to go into St. Mary's last week and get a win there when St. Mary's is coming off a loss to Magnolia at home and really kind of trying to circle the wagons and get
we were
itself
talking
back
about
in gear.
St.
And South
Mary's as
Harrison comes in and
possibly
beats you.
the second best team in Class
Right,
A, regardless of the
yeah.
loss just a week ago.
I think
Think there
South
was any
Harrison.
hangover effect there?
I think absolutely. I mean, I wasn't in the locker room or anything like that, but that kind of loss that they sustained against Magnolia is going to linger a little bit. But look, that's a place that I don't know that South Harrison has beaten them since South Harrison joined the Little Kanawha Conference in 07 or 08. So that's a big win for that program. Like I said, with the youth they've got, and we see them move up to number 5 in the poll. Yeah, I think there's somebody to watch come playoff time.
South
They've already
Harrison was
clinched.
coming off maybe a worse loss than St. Mary's was because they just lost to Tyler, who turned around and got drilled by Magnolia. So,
Yeah.
which Magnolia has a tendency to do
Yeah.
right now.
The other Class A game I wanted to mention from last week was that Pocahontas County man game.
Yeah.
Didn't see that one coming, and now maybe roles have reversed a little bit for those two teams. Man is going to be in that bottom half of Class A, it's looking like maybe right around the edge, but Pocahontas County, if you're a team with a home game in Class A, you don't want to see Pocahontas County coming to town in the playoffs all of a sudden. And I couldn't tell you the name of a player off Pocahontas County right now, but I wouldn't want to play them the way they're playing right now.
Here's the deal. They've got this week off, and then they've got to go to Cameron, which is a real. I mean, that's an unreal road trip for Pocahontas County to make. But if they can get over the effect of that, they'll end up 8-2. Pocahontas County might have a first round home game.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm looking at the poll, and we'll get into it more later, I'm sure. But in the top 10 teams in Single A, we've got Moorfield at number 3, East Hardy at number 6, Pocahontas County at number 10 or 9, and Pendleton at 10. There's 4 of those schools from, the Potomac Valley Conference or whatever, that are in the top 10. I think we've talked about the Northern Panhandle Single A schools and, the different pockets of different strengths in the state. That East, not quite the eastern part of the Eastern Panhandle, but that, the Allegheny Highlands.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah,
it's
the-
really strong
the
this
thumb.
year. Yeah.
All right, well, we'll jump into the Gazette Mail football poll from there. We won't look any more back at last week. Look forward here. This is the Week 10 poll for the Charleston Gazette Mail in Class AAA at number 1, Cabell Midland, like we mentioned. Still undefeated. The Knights get all 10 first place votes this week. They've been getting 9 before, so they are 8-0, and they actually play Parkersburg on Thursday. I believe is that what was the deal with that? There's something going on in Parkersburg that day?
No,
or?
they're at home.
That's
I
right.
mean, it's the cross-country state
That's right.
meet.
Cross-country state
Midland.
meet at Ona, so they did that. Okay,
Yep.
so that game's on Thursday. At number 2 in Class AAA, Point Pleasant, the Big Blacks are 9-0, and they are at Princeton on November 6th, so they are off this week. At number 3, Wheeling Park, the Patriots 6-1-1. They host Parkersburg South. At number 4, Martinsburg, the Bulldogs, steady rise back up the polls after dropping out with those early losses. Not too shocked.
You've won 6 in a row.
To see that there. Yeah, they're 6-2 now after starting 0-2. They moved up from number 5 last week. They're at Musselman. A lot of road games.
Yeah.
Pretty much the rest of the AAA poll actually on the road this week. Excuse me. At number 5, Capital, the Cougars also 6-2. They are at Woodrow Wilson, allegedly. We'll see after what happened last year. At number 6, Huntington, the Highlanders are 7-2. They are at Nitro. At number 7, George Washington, the Patriots dropped from number 3 last week after that loss against Cabell Midland. G-Dub is at Spring Valley. At number 8, Morgantown, the Mohegans, also 7-2. They are up 1 spot from number 9 last week, and it's the Mohawk Bowl week.
Indeed.
Up in Morgantown at University. At number 9, Jefferson, the Cougars are 6-2, dropping from number 7 after that loss to Martinsburg last week. They're at South Hagerstown in Maryland on Friday. And rounding out the top 10 in Class AAA, South Charleston, the Black Eagles, 5-3 at Riverside. The others receiving votes in Class AAA, Brook and Greenbrier East. Guys, any thoughts on how this is sort of shaping up? Because I think they've kind of sort of fallen into about where we thought they might end up being. Things have sort of sorted itself out, and you're not seeing a whole lot of big jumps either way.
Yeah, I think the fact that Greenbrier East is getting 2 votes is interesting to me. They are, oh gosh, 7-2 or 6-2. Yeah, 6-2, and they've got 2 games left.
They whipped Parkersburg.
5-3. Okay,
Whipped Parkersburg South last week.
that's right.
That was one of the best. Oh, that was one of the best wins of the week.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, they've got Oak Hill and Princeton in their last 2 weeks.
Okay.
So Princeton this week, then Oak Hill. I think we're going to see Greenbrier East in the playoffs, and that'll be the first time since 1998 that they've made the field.
That would
Xavier
leave,
Lawson,
was it Hedgesville? Would then have the longest
would have
playoff
the
drought?
longest AAA playoff drought. They haven't been in it since '97. So, wait, it means Hedgesville already is.
Okay. Well, that would.
No,
leave
I'm
them
the
as
one that's been
only
saying
one, yeah.
that. That doesn't make any sense.
Way to go, Derek. You broke my brain with that bit of knowledge last night.
Anyway, maybe something like that. Greenbrier East hadn't been in a long time. It was '98 the last time they were there.
Okay.
But Xavier Lawson, their running back, has run for more than 1,600 yards, and
Having a real good year down there.
Yeah, definitely. And if we see Greenbrier East get into the playoffs, as I'm expecting them to, and they're probably going to go on the road in the first round, he's going to have a chance to, as we've talked about, that formula for winning the Kennedy, being able to showcase your talents in different media markets other than your own. That's going to give Lawson a shot at that. So.
Just look at Brooke getting 8 votes, and man, they just stayed hot last week. It's 6-3 now, 1 game to go. No, we have them behind South Charleston, but you look at the resume of wins, and it's really not close.
Yeah.
Brooks beating some pretty good teams, including at Park, so that's a team to look out for, I think, when the playoffs start too.
I think some more consideration has to be given, I think, to that result between South Charleston and Hurricane. Hurricane's 4-4, and that's the first team that South Charleston has beaten with a 500 record or better. And that game was what, 14-6?
Yeah.
When was the last time there was a defensive struggle involving either of those teams?
Right. So I had Brooke and Greenbrier East on my ballot. I did not have South Charleston in my top 10.
I guess that's where we'll wrap up for Class AAA. Moving on to Class... Anyhow, in Class AA, in the Gazette Mail football poll this week at number 1, as they've been all season long, Bridgeport, the Indians, two-time defending Class AA state champions, 7-0-1. Big game for them this week. Maybe a bigger game for the team they're playing. They're hosting Fairmont Senior. We've talked about that before. The Harrison County, Marion County dynamic up there. It makes for some fun games from the unbiased or somebody that doesn't necessarily have a dog in either of those fights.
I think that rivalry between Bridgeport and Fairmont Senior might actually be a little more chippy than the Bird-Bridgeport rivalry.
I think it is. I think it absolutely is.
I think Bird and Bridgeport love to play each other and love to beat on each other or whatever, but there's not quite the element of, let's put all the PC stuff aside, there's not really much of an element of nastiness to it. There is when it comes to Bridgeport.
Well, there's a lot of chest thumping going on up there when you win that game. It doesn't matter what sport it is either. And it also helps that both of those programs are really good athletic programs, and it tends to have a lot more on the line than just bragging rights when they play. But we'll move on from there. At number 2, Tulsa, the Rebels stay at number 2 this week, 8-0 at Boyd County, Kentucky. At number 3, Bluefield, the Beavers are 6-1, also holding steady at number 3 for a second consecutive week. They host James Monroe, and that could be a pretty good game between those two. Is that the game of the week this week?
That is our Gazette Mail poll game of the week. Rick Ryan is going to be covering that one. This is the Mavericks' first time. They've clinched the playoff spot, which is their first since 2009.
Yeah.
So, but yet, really, I'm not sure, how good they are. I don't, they got beat by Princeton on the last-second field goal. I think this is easily James Monroe's biggest test so far.
And that Princeton loss, it looks better every week, it seems like. Princeton seems like they're kind of getting some momentum going second half of the season. At number 4, the Fairmont Senior Polar Bears that we mentioned, they've got that game at Bridgeport on Friday. They are 7-1, up 1 spot from number 5 last week. Could be trouble in the AA playoffs. At number 5, Mingo Central, the Miners, 7-1, down a spot from number 4 last week.
That's what we were talking about.
Mingo Central dropped a spot.
There's a little bit of a jumble here.
But and we talked about Herbert Hoover a little bit earlier. They will hit the road and go out to Falling Rock to face the Huskies on Friday. I think that's going to be a good game.
That's one on that.
Yeah. At number 6, James Monroe, the Mavs 7-1 at Bluefield. Down. No, they stay steady. They were number 6 last week. Excuse me. help if I would just read the line straight across
Yeah,
instead of jumping all over. But man, at number 7, Kaiser, the Golden Tornado. At number 7 again this week, they're 6-2, and big game for them. The Mineral Bowl. They play Frankfurt on Friday. At number 8, Lincoln, the Cougars 7-1, up from number 9 last week, and Robert C. Byrd making the trip to Shinston. And that's going to be a good game.
Big game.
A lot of good games in Double-A this week.
Yep.
At number 9, Robert C. Byrd, the Flying Eagles we just mentioned, not ranked last week in the poll at number 9. They are 5-3 at Lincoln, and rounding out the top 10 in Class AA, Chapmanville, the Tigers are 7-2, down from number 8 last week at Wayne. 3 other teams receiving votes in Class AA: Herbert Hoover, Weir, and Summers County. Man, Herbert Hoover is almost finally getting some love in the Gazette Mail poll.
Yep.
Any thoughts outside of that? I mean, we stopped a little bit as we were going through that. Anything else jumping out at you in Class AA?
I mean, like you said, there's some really good and really, important rivalry matchup kind of things this week. It's a big week. A lot of people wrapping up their schedule this week.
And more than just rivalry stuff, though. I mean, there's going to be playoff seeding at stake.
Yeah.
I mean, Fairmont Senior's sitting up near the top. If they take that loss to Bridgeport, that's going to drop them down a little bit. Same Robert C. Byrd and Lincoln, James Monroe and Bluefield, Herbert Hoover and Mingo Central. I mean, these are all potential playoff teams.
Yep. And Weir gave Brooke everything it wanted last week, and it's just right there outside. It fell out of the
Weir
bowl.
gave Magnolia everything.
Yeah, Weir kind of sneakily is hanging around with some really good teams. Red Raiders could be tough out.
I'd watch for them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, in Class A this week, at number 1, Magnolia. They received all 10 first-place votes, 9-0. Number 1 last week, off this week at Lindsley on November 7th. And you've been doing the Gazette Mail and previous incarnation of the Daily Mail poll for a long time. Have you presided over this when 3 teams have just stayed number 1 essentially all year long? I know there was a little bit of a jumble in Class A early, but it seems like Midland, really since that the Capital win by Cabell Midland, that it's been these 3, and
not this steadily.
Yeah.
This has been I
now
think
everything behind those teams
that's
is
the
jumbled
thing.
around, but the top has stayed the same pretty much
and
every week.
That's what I've been talking to a couple different writers from across the state, and we're all of the same mind that after you get past 1 is 10-10-10. We all got that, but the rest of that is really a jumble that you can't really figure out right yet. And I think that's going to make for a really interesting playoff season, because I don't think anybody has a clear idea of who the second, third, and fourth best teams are and so forth. I think we're going to see a good bit of upsets in the first round, especially. Yeah.
All right, at number 2 in Class A, Wheeling Central, Maroon Knights are 7-1. They host Carrick, Pennsylvania on Friday. At number 3, Moorfield, they are 7-1, up 1 spot from number 4 last week. They're hosting Pendleton County in what should be a pretty good game, you would think. At number 4, Buffalo, the Bison drop a spot despite not losing. They're 8-0, down from number 3 last week, hosting Sherman on Friday. At number 5, South Harrison, we talked a little bit about earlier. The Hawks are 7-1, up from number 9 last week after that win against St. Mary's, and they host Payden City on Friday. Excuse me. At number 6, East Hardy this week, up 1 spot from number 7 last week. They are 7-1 at Clear Spring, Maryland on Friday. At number 7, Williamstown, 6-2, up from number 8 last week. They host Braxton County. Number 8, St. Mary's, making the drop from number 5 after that loss. They are 6-2 at Ravenswood. At number 9, Pocahontas County, off this week, then at Cameron the week after that. They are 7-2 and in the poll for the first time. I know they weren't rated. Yeah. Not rated last week, in the poll for the first time this season. And at number 10, Pendleton County, 7-2 at Moorfield. The other teams receiving votes in Class A this week are Man, Tug Valley, and Meadow Bridge.
Man and Tug play Friday night.
And that's going to be...
That's a good one.
Not a lot of intrigue in Class AAA this week, but AA and Class A, a lot of important games. As we mentioned, rivalries and playoff seedings playing into all of that.
Take a look at where Man and Tug Valley are in the SSAC ratings, too. It's 8-9. And that could very well just be the playing game for a home game.
Yeah, really.
That makes it even bigger. So,
another we went over in AAA Capital at Woodrow. John Lilly announced his resignation from Woodrow yesterday.
Yes.
That'll be his last home game. So that'll be an interesting,
How long has he been the coach there?
15 years.
Wow, that's what I thought.
Yeah. And then they wrap up their season at Winfield next week.
Okay. I'll take a moment to mention As always, we are at Adelphia Sports Bar and Grill at 218 Capitol Street in the heart of downtown Charleston. Big weekend for these guys. Halloween coming up, they take it seriously, and Halloween's on a Saturday. How often do you get something cool like that? I mean, every 7 years or so, I guess. But Thursday they've got the TCU WVU game on. A bunch of people will be down here. Friday, having a party. Saturday, they'll have, I believe, cash prizes for costumes. The staff will be dressed up. Should be a good time. Get on down here and grab you some drinks, grab you some food at Adelphia.
Sounds good to me.
And yeah, they take care of us every week. We had grilled cheese sandwich with the gyro meat on it. Oh man, hadn't had that before. Really good today. Might eat it every week from now on.
Gyro Angus burger I had was pretty daggone good too, man.
Well, we shared what we ate.
Grilled chicken sandwich, simple and good.
Oh, anyhow, we'll get into a little bit of the postseason awards races.
Sure.
You know, last year you had a big hand in starting a lot of the more specialized awards. Of course, we had the Hunt Award, the Huff Award, and the Kennedy Award for years and years and years and years. Those were the three. There's a lot more now, and we've mentioned them before on the podcast this season, but it's kind of your baby. So why don't you explain to the people that maybe don't know what I don't want to call them new awards, they've been around for a year now, but what the newer awards are and who they're named after, and then as you do that, maybe we can throw out some names that might be in consideration.
Cool.
Not that there's a committee or anything right now that's naming them, just guys that off the top of our heads that we think might be in the mix for this.
Yeah, actually, it was South Charleston coach Donnie Mays who had started talking to me about, just throwing spitballs at a wall, awards to recognize the specific best players at, different positions. Because we had the best player as a Kennedy and best defensive player of the Huff and the best lineman of the Hunt, and we came up with, a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, linebacker, defensive back, and special teams player of the year. And we named them after the quarterback, J.R. House, running back, Kurt Warner from Pineville.
Kurt with a C, not with
Yes.
a K.
Wide receiver, Randy Moss. Linebacker Chuck Howley from Wheeling.
Okay.
Defensive back Carl Lee, and special teams player Fulton Walker. And those are those awards. And last year we had a couple underclassmen win them last year.
Kentrey Greer won the
Kentrey
J.R.
Greer
House
won
Award.
the House Award. Christian Johnson won the Randy Moss Award, the wide receiver from Jefferson. Not thinking any other underclassmen right off the top of my head. Oh, no. Marcus Lofton from Buchanan Upshur was the Carl Lee Award winner. He had like 13 interceptions.
Yeah, he had a really, really good season for the Bucks.
Yeah. And, what I'm thinking about this year is, right about this time of year, I start, making lists and things of people who I want to be looking out for these awards. When we go to like the All-State meeting where this is all settled, just so I'm aware of everything before I go in there and then whatever. I've
get
got
your
my
ducks in a
own,
row.
thoughts together. And, what we might see this year, or might not, is situations where we have a Kennedy Award winner who might be a running back who doesn't win the best running back of the year. I mean, because, the Kennedy Award's for an all-around player,
Sure.
and that might not be the best running back. Now, a perfect scenario for this is what we're talking about with Nunu Miller. Nunu Miller, George Washington is having one of the best years in the state for any running back. At the same time, I haven't seen Nunu Miller do anything besides take a handoff. So I don't know if he's better fit for the Warner Award or a better candidate for the Kennedy Award, and so on. And I think Ryan Gatrell at Huntington, might not win the best linebacker or Huff Award, but I'll tell you what, I know he had 3 blocked punts in one game, and he's their punter. He's also, they're also their punter, and he's also one of the best defensive players in the state. So I would
A little more well-rounded.
yeah, and he might be a Fulton Walker Award candidate because of that.
Sure.
So I think we're looking at those kind of things. I think that those are the kind of situations we're going to have when we get into discussing these.
Well, you mentioned the underclassmen that have won awards last year. We'll start with that that J.R. House Award. Kentrey Greer coming back with the award in tow. I think he's the favorite coming into the season. And I think he's still right there in the mix, but he hasn't really separated himself the way you might expect the returning winner of the Quarterback of the Year award to
Right.
do. Obviously, Tyree Pratt's another name that gets thrown around in there. But just some other names that have kicked around in my head. Garrett Gilkinson, quarterback from
Parkersburg South.
Parkersburg South, and I'm blanking on the name, the Chapmanville quarterback. Stevie Hammond
Alex
at Berry, Stevie Hammond at Mingo Central. You know, there's quarterbacks, and that's just kind of in our area still. There's a lot of quarterbacks having good seasons. Where do you kind of see this going right now? Who do you think's really in the mix?
I think the House Award is wide open. I really do. I mean, we talk about Greer, and you know, it's kind of the comment that I made a few minutes ago about the Hurricane game. Where's the big wins aren't there for Kentrell Greer. So I mean, the stats.
And he's had some really big games against Winfield and Ripley.
Yeah,
he's our player of the week 2 weeks in a row.
Those need to happen
it's
against
Winfield and Ripley. You know,
Capital and GW. They play GW in their regular season finale.
Yeah,
so
week from
there's
Friday.
a shot.
Yeah.
You know, Pratt has been banged up. You know, so and he's for as talented as he is, he's never really been a stat monster.
No,
you know.
no.
So and that's what people tend to. I mean, you look for scientific evidence. The
Yeah, if
scientific evidence is stats.
Yeah, if
I
you've
mean,
never
so-
seen him play and you just look at the numbers, you go, well, what's all the noise about? this
Right,
kid?
exactly.
If you're going by pure numbers, Tyler May has to be in that.
Exactly.
conversation, too.
Yes,
exactly.
from
He
Roane
already
County.
had the single season rushing record in school history before last week's game. So,
Yeah.
wow, that's pretty. He's over 2,000 now.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I know Wheeling Park's got a hot shot quarterback. You know, the Wilkinson kid.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I haven't had a chance to see him, and I may or may not. But you know,
It's not mentioning the Fairmont Senior and Robert C. Bird kids.
Right.
Names kind of escaping me, but I've seen them both, and both are good players.
Yeah, very. Like you said, just about as wide open as any of the awards are.
yeah,
Right now.
I think the Moss Award. I mean, Christian Johnson is going to be right there for that.
I was gonna get into that. I don't.
But Crunchy Bays is having a monster year.
So is Drew
Yeah,
Bowen
Drew
at
Bowen.
GW.
Yeah.
I got to see Christian Johnson play in the playoffs last year, and I was so
Yeah.
impressed with that. He is so good, and it's going to take a big performance and a big when we sit down at the end of it and look at it all. Somebody's going to have to have done something very, very impressive to convince me that Christian Johnson isn't the best wide receiver in
Gotcha.
West Virginia right now.
Gotcha.
But hey, that's why these things get voted on. It's open
Yep.
to interpretation. Any other names for any of these other awards that might be worth mentioning, getting on the radar, guys, that people watch this and they're from different parts of the state.
Right.
They might not have heard of some of these other kids.
Well, I think Reese Donahue is the favorite for the Hunt Award as the best lineman in the state.
He's from
I
Cabell
think
Midland.
he's just a
Yeah.
monster.
Committed to WVU.
Yeah. You know, in the Huff Award, there's all those guys, defenders that we've talked about. And Chris Camp at Midland is having a heck of a year, too.
Oh, he is having a good year.
Yeah. Their linebacker. Not that they have only one, but he's the guy. And I don't know so much as defensive backs, right off the top of my head. That's something that sort of comes out with interceptions and stuff, but I think
Yeah.
more needs to be looked at. Well, Colton Rollison at GW is having a heck of a year
Yeah.
at safety, so you know he's going to be a candidate there too.
Yeah, I know he missed some time with some injuries, but
Yeah.
Drake Pitts has been really good
No.
when he's been on the field for South Charleston. People
Yeah.
aren't throwing all over the Black Eagles. He's a big part of that. And he
Yeah.
kind of, that hybrid, he's big enough for high school. He can get down in and kind of play that safety linebacker sort of
Yeah.
deal. So he's a little more
Played the line up
versatile.
defensive
Yeah.
end every now
Yeah.
and then. Straight rush to passer, too.
Yep. Well, that just about does it for this episode. You guys got any
Pretty
final
smooth.
thought, parting shots,
I
anything
did
like
until
that?
Derek took it.
Oh,
I was gonna talk about.
what was it?
I was just going to talk about John Lilly for a minute if we didn't bring it up. I'm sure you have more experience with him than I do, but I have one of the most unique experiences, and that is standing with him under the Woodrow bleachers, watching fans fall out and getting their money back last year. And
You know, that game's coming up
Yeah,
this week,
and
and we joked
yeah.
about it.
I almost
It's-
assigned it
yeah.
to you.
If you're not aware, Capital and Woodrow Wilson were scheduled to play in Beckley last year. Capital shows up. The fans showed up. Everybody showed up.
Ryan showed up.
Ryan Prince showed up, but the referees didn't.
Yeah.
And the game never got played. And there was a big to-do about it. We talked about it a bunch last year. Well, they're playing that game again this year, so
Well, Lily,
we've got jokes.
Lily was, that was a bad spot for him because, a lot of biased people were saying, oh, well, Woodrow didn't want to play this game because I lost at that time. Would have kept him out of the playoff. But he was really, really open and really cool about it with me.
Yeah.
And that's something I always appreciate. So,
All right. I guess that just about does it. Of course, you can find everything that we do covering high school football at wvhuddle.com. You can follow us on Twitter at wvhuddle. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. If it's a social media outlet that we can post a link or a picture or a video to, then we're out there. I think there might be some things superimposed under us with our Twitter handles or stuff on it. At It's Really DT. Mine's at Tom Bragg Sports. His is at R Pritt. Of course, if you're looking for other sports coverage, we've got all of that at wvgazettemail.com/sports. Same thing on Twitter. It's at Gazmail Sports. We're on Facebook. We're all over the place. So lots of places to find all of our work that all of us and our fine colleagues put together each week.
You do really good at remembering all that every week, man.
I forgot it last week. I definitely blew it last week and didn't mention any of it. So thanks for bringing it up.
It's all good.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.